Welcome to Discover Energy Work. It's really great to be back. Today I have a really, I'm really excited because I've got this really interesting guest, Mihaela, who is the co-developer of Seeing Without Eyes. And Seeing Without Eyes is literally what it sounds like. You get to experience seeing beyond your eye organs. So how are you today, Mihaela?
Right. Well, hello, Richard. Hello, everybody who is watching us and will be watching us. It's a great day. It's a quiet day here where I am. It's a national holiday, so people are quiet, energies are quiet, everything is nice. Just kitties around, which is one of my passions, to have kitties around. Otherwise, all is good. Energies are strong, are moving, are creating things that we've been dreaming of for years.
Oh, great.
They come, the manifestation has started of our biggest dreams. So
Wow.
everything is perfect. Yes.
So I want to sort of bring everybody to sort of an understanding of what you're actually doing, because I saw you on the Superhuman film, and I saw you with children or educating this lady actually how to she was going gradually blind, medically blind, where she was unable to read things, like read labels on bottles and so on, and she was able to do that with your instructions. So could you explain to everybody like what is Seeing Without Eyes and how people get there, or very, very simply?
Yeah. This is a 20-year-old going on 21-year-old method that was initially developed by Malcolm Sarov. And he had the chance to meet a man who had this ability naturally. Somehow the environment didn't block this ability. So this got Mark to think, first of all, is this just a unique case that this man has this ability, or rather, if one person can do it, then all of us can do it. Just we don't know how, we don't know that we can do it to begin with, and then we don't know how. So then he started thinking of developing some exercises that might activate this ability in absolutely everybody. He and I agree with him. We do not agree with the label of paranormal or even extrasensorial perception. It's rather something we all have, but we don't know. We just need, first of all, to accept that we have it, it's possible, and then to either try it on your own or look for somebody who has learned to do it, and then they can pass on the methodology, the teaching. And his idea was a very brilliant one, because he thought, if somehow we can see without our eyes, then it means that the blind can see. With this thought, the entire methodology that he created was aiming at replicating our sight, normal sight, through the eyes, transfer it, copy-paste it, replicate it to infravision sight, let's call it, to give it a name. And then the exercises are meant to gradually teach your mind and your brain to be able to do it. With the blind, there's a little bit of discussion about whether they are born blind or not. If they had some illness or accident sometime along their life, then it's much easier to get them to recover their sight, because they know what it means to see, they know all the visual concepts, colors, objects, everything. Whereas blind from birth, you would have to teach them the actual seeing, not only to see, but also to get a meaning from that perception.
Right.
And then he moved on to thinking maybe it's interesting to offer this to sighted children as well. But of course, for sighted children, he used a blindfold so that the eyes cannot see. And then an interesting thing happened. Parents came back and said, oh, you know, my kid was doing very poorly in school. Now he's one of the top in his class. He used to be aggressive. Now he's calm. He used to be too passive. Now he's engaged. And all of this feedback telling that something happens in the person's system. I don't want to say just the brain, because it's not only the brain, in the person's system that somehow helps regulating all of the imbalances that we all have on one level or another. And then he thought of, okay, it works fine with children, what about adults? And then he moved to adults, and he developed totally different methodology for adults, because the adult psychology is totally different. And then 6 years ago, I joined. First, I attended the course, and it was such a powerful experience that it overwhelmed me to the point where I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand what just happened. What did I get? I just felt that something very important happened to me, like a shift, but I could not really describe it or say, yes, I know it's a shift because this or that. Just I felt it inside. And in a month or so after the seminar, I saw some positive changes in my health. At the time when I had the seminar, Mark knew, that infravision can help with 5 issues: visual problems, hearing problems, IQ deficiency or deficit, dyslexia, which is kind of related to IQ, and speech problems if they were not related to the morphology of the mouth, so if they were basically psychological or emotional in nature. But what I had before the seminar was some hormonal issues, particularly the thyroid gland was overactive. Okay. And I suddenly noticed that the symptoms that I had been used to for years, like 15, maybe more years, were not there anymore. So I thought, could this be provision? Because, you know, this is not on the list. So I kept observing, see if with the training I'm getting a clear evidence if that is improvisional, and there couldn't have been anything else because I didn't do anything else. I didn't do any other seminar or any other therapist. I'm not checking doctors for decades, so that wouldn't have been any way. And I saw that things were getting better and better. So that got me thinking that maybe this list of 5 items is not only 5 items. So then I started telling the people in the course, sharing my experience, and directed them to observe themselves. Because I thought maybe nobody reported before because they just missed those things. They were paying attention to, you know, seeing the colors, and they missed this other thing.
Right.
And indeed, people then started to come back and say, you know, I sleep better, I eat less, I do this, I'm calmer, I'm this, I'm that. So then 3 key questions came to me, which completely put me on a specific path inside of infravision. The first question that came to me was, how is it possible that with the same set of exercises, literally standard set of exercises, you get improvement with visual, with hearing, with IQ, so these 5 issues, and now my thyroid gland. And the answer was, well, maybe there is indeed, as the method is called, center of direct information perception. Maybe there is indeed a center, not only, like a metaphysical name of the method. Maybe there really is a center, and the characteristic of the center is that it communicates with everything else. It's connected to everything else. So then that might explain why with seeing those colored papers, you can improve vision, but you can also fix your thyroid gland.
Right.
The next question was, what if indeed we can extend the list, and how long that list might be of conditions, medical conditions, that InfoVision can help with?
Yeah.
And I started contemplating and correlating the empirical observation of what was happening during the seminar with reading about the brain, basically. And I got to realize, hypothetically at least, that basically that list can be as long as we, as InfoVision people, dare to think that it can be.
Okay.
And the last question that came to me, okay, if that's the case, is there anything that we can do specifically to make this, to target this outcome, rather than waiting and hoping for it to accidentally happen? And that's when I developed the therapeutical branch. I'm putting it in inverted commas because, in my understanding, there's no therapist and patient or client. I'm not doing anything specifically, just this information in my energy field, in my mind, that it's possible, the trust in this really unusual method, really unusual. I'm not saying it because I'm practicing it. I'm saying this because of what I've witnessed these years while being in provision, and I'll mention a couple of the experiences that really blew me away.
I'm curious. You see, it's incredible. Did you experience this and it blew you away? Were you coming from a science background, or were you a housewife, or were you a businesswoman? What were you? I mean, I would think it wouldn't matter what background you come from if you're suddenly seeing without eyes. But I mean, did you have a background which made it more meaningful, as it were?
No, not necessarily. I mean, my background is English teacher and translator.
Right.
So I see very little connection between my background and what's happening now. Right. However, I would say that my personal life does have connection. I always was attracted to really unusual things and unusual people. The mainstream people and life in general always was very boring to me. I would lose patience immediately, interest. Also, I had some experiences before InfoVision, which really opened my mind to it. I had a couple of lucid dreams and astral travels naturally occurring. I used to see orbs some years ago, before infravision already.
Right.
Somebody has initiated me in seeing the energy, had initiated me, so before the infravision again. So I had a little bit of, if you can compare or quantify this, I had some experiences that made me curious and very open to the possibility of unusual things, but more importantly, made me believe that I can manifest those abilities, because I always say there are 2 levels of approaching these unusual abilities. One is to believe that they exist, generally speaking, and second, equally equally important, that I can have these abilities or train and learn these abilities. And it's here where most people kind of fail themselves, I would say, because we all come up with doubts about ourselves.
Yes.
Maybe I'm too old. Maybe, I haven't had any other spiritual practice before. Maybe this, maybe that, whatever it is. Adults express their not lack really, but not 100% at least, self-trust by asking these questions, having these doubts.
It's interesting.
But it's really something that
anybody can do it. What I find interesting is, as far as I have a psychology background, as my bachelor's in psychology, and when we love stability in our lives, we actually need stability in our lives. And when you discover that something you thought was absolutely not possible is possible, that isn't really stability for you. That can be quite scary for you, in fact. And scary, it should be a good thing, shouldn't it? But actually, there's often a lot of resistance. Because, and this is actually a psychological theory called terror management theory, which I've just been looking into. We do things which support our self-esteem, our good feeling about ourselves, and that supports us from ever thinking about our own death, believe it or not.
Right.
And then you have something which shakes your stability, so you're kind of lacking self-esteem, and then you go into, believe it or not, according to the researchers, death anxiety.
Right.
Even though when you're experiencing energy, you have to question the validity or understanding of death is very limited. So
Yeah,
and
it does like death of at least part of your belief system. That's what happens during the seminar, and particularly the activation session is very powerful because it activates just that. It shakes our belief system so much, with which we are so identified, that when you're faced with a reality that, okay, maybe you have accepted it intellectually, that's why you came to the seminar, right? Okay, you did some reading, this, that, maybe you have some spiritual aspirations, so you accept, okay, third eye, all this story. But then when you have the actual experience, when you manage your subconscious mind, and I feel somehow that you challenge not only your own, if there is such a thing, your own subconscious mind, but you challenge actually the collective subconscious mind. then it's a really powerful experience. And many people tell me, especially in the activation session, that they feel some kind of a panic attack.
Right, which would make sense according to the terror management theory of Solomon Greenberg and somebody or other. I've forgotten who they were. So, and that was my experience learning to feel energy. It was actually, I felt disconnected from everybody. That was sort of like, and I better not tell anybody that I can feel this because they'll think I'm crazy. And I'm feeling so great watching the Super Sense film, because I'm seeing children doing it, and I'm thinking, oh, I went out and I bought some pens, colored pens, and I said, I'm gonna start trying this. I don't know, and I'm gonna do a class if I possibly can with you, because I know that I've experienced the impossible already happening, and I experience it like regularly when I'm working with my clients. But it's not impossible for me, it's only impossible for them, but I just don't tell them because they may be scared, understandably so. Yeah. But what would be interesting, wouldn't it be great if we could work out a way of defusing that bomb before it goes off, the scare bomb of the panic attack?
Well, I've been thinking about this, to be honest, and of course, when you teach, inevitably you transfer your life experience and the way you view life based on your own experience. And my life experience has been that the bomb just had to blow off. So I had been put in situations where I did not have the time, the opportunity to prepare myself or be prepared for that. And so I'm used to bombs. And then when I'm watching people, the more you prepare, of course, it's never a standard answer, but generally speaking, I would still go with not preparing them much for two reasons. One, the more you tell them before the experience, the more inevitably you start creating an image, expectations, but also, very interesting, unconsciously, you put the guard on.
Right.
Whereas if I catch you off guard,
right,
then the real experience can happen. And of course, I'm there if you get too close to your limit, but your real limit, not the limit that you think you have. That self-protection limit I'm talking about.
Right.
Then I'm there to stop you right before you reach that limit.
Right.
So that nothing happens. But that is individual, and it needs indeed somebody there to do that, but not you. Whereas if I am told, okay, this will happen, inevitably, it's human condition that I prepare consciously or unconsciously in my mind a scenario. And then when I'm facing the experience, instead of being totally open to the experience, all of the time, again, consciously or unconsciously, I'm busy comparing my scenario with the experience.
Right. Yes. Valid point. Very valid point. And so, what have you personally found was the most amazing thing that you've been able to do with this seeing without eyes for you?
The therapy side seems to me the most amazing. The first thing that struck me again was that once this ability is activated in various ways, depending on the person that needs that activation, um, then it seems to be working on any issue that person might have. And I'll give you some examples to see how um, how far away seem to be one from another. For example, it helps with Parkinson. It helps with Alzheimer. It helps with ADHD. It helps with autism, with how do you call that? Metabolism, allergies, addictions, dementia, if I had one case.
Right.
What else? All sorts of emotional traumas, cerebral palsy.
Well, this is incredible. That's great. And
Indeed.
so, can you tell me the story of somebody walked in with a problem, and then a little bit sort of an example of the process they went through?
Yeah. So I will tell them chronologically, because for me they are all amazing. I would not be able to make a hierarchy, like which is more than the other.
Yeah.
They are all, to me at least. The first experience that really blew everybody away that we were there was blind and autistic boy in Slovakia. The parents brought the boy for the blindness. And they asked us if we can help. We said, as usual, let's try. There's never 100% guarantee, but what our duty is to try. Our duty as provision people, parents, is to bring the boy. So they brought the boy, and when they brought him, we saw that actually he was also autistic. That was 3 years ago, I would say, when I knew absolutely nothing about autism. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that I knew was something very, very primitive, which is that autistic children live in another world. That's all I knew, if that can be called knowledge.
Right.
So when we saw him all crying and blind and not communicating, non-verbal and anything, the usual activation way could not take place. For example, why? Because all of these children just don't accept the mask.
Right.
There's something in their energy field that doesn't accept the mask. Very interesting. It's 100% statistically proven to me. I saw in my experience, they do not accept the mask. So the usual way of activating this boy just didn't work. So I had to find a way that I hadn't practiced, I hadn't used before. And it came to me as information, and I did it. And then the boy could see the light. That's the first information that we learn to see without our eyes, whether we wear a mask or they are blind. This is the first information that we see. So he responded to light in the first session. And I also presented to him colors, but everything in silence, no talk whatsoever. Anyway, he was Slovakian, I was Romanian, English speaking. There was no translator. I was just myself with the boy in the room. Yeah. And then the second session was with his father, teaching him how to integrate the boy in our world. He was literally not living in our world. So not connected through his perceptions, through his senses to our world. And then 3-4 days after that, we received from the parents a video of the boy, And we have on our YouTube channel, on Mark's YouTube channel, we have the boy with before and after. Within a time frame of a week, how big change is from
Amazing.
screaming out, rejecting absolutely everything, to a happy, bright, smiling face,
Amazing.
playing and talking to his mother, saying amazing or something like that in his language. So that was the first amazing experience.
That's incredible.
Why? Because I knew incredible, really, and with no experience on my side. That's what made it for me even more incredible. Like, you know, the more you get experience, the more you expect that you are successful. So maybe it becomes less and less incredible when you have 100 cases, then maybe it becomes sort of normal to you. But when it happens for the first time,
I don't know. As a like I've set myself the goal of being a healer. I'm always absolutely thrilled when I have somebody get better, like for whatever reason. I think it's always amazing. Well, normally because I see people who really they don't have hope in any other direction. That's kind of the people that I want to say, like, there are other options, but I understand you probably feel there aren't, but there are. And I hear you giving that hope. I mean, that's amazing.
Generally, people who get to people like you and me are those who tried all the, you know, the usual options and they didn't work. So their last chance is something completely unusual, and then they find us. And these are the best patients because they are really open. They understand this is my last chance, so they put all their hope, all their intention, or everything in there, like the last, you know, straw that can save them. And guess what? It does.
Fantastic.
And then the next experience was in Kazakhstan, where I had 5 disabled children, again, different disabilities.
I missed it. 5, was it?
Different disabilities.
Right.
One was autistic, another one cerebral palsy, another one which is not a disability in itself, but it may get disabilitating, which is Down syndrome.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was too with cerebral palsy, but different manifestation. Like one of them had his hand like that, and fingers.
Spastic.
Yeah. Another one with elements of autism, he would not walk stepping on his entire sole, tiptoeing, which is one of the elements from the autism spectrum, and also not going to the toilet, which is again another element of the autism spectrum. And the Down syndrome boy, 3-year-old, very, very low IQ, to the point where the mother could not tell him, go to the other room and bring that to me. She had to tell him, go to the other room. When he was there, would tell him, okay, open the cupboard, for example. Okay, next. So he was not able to process complex information.
Right.
And we had 2 sessions, and accidentally, luckily, during these 3 days when we met, the boy also had another therapy with a speech therapist. And he had had one session already, so she could have evaluated him. And when she had him the second session, the therapist told the mother what happened, because what we achieved today, normally I would have had to work 2-3 months to get this result.
Wow.
So
that's an incredible financial incentive.
Exactly.
People are expensive. I mean, you know, they're worth it, but they're expensive.
Yes, yes. And then after the second session, he started becoming verbal and more focused. Of course, he would have ADHD, more cooperative. So he changed in 2 sessions. One of the amazing, incredibly amazing things about improvision, it's enough one session to know if we can help or not. And that's amazing, because if you don't get results in the first session, then you know it doesn't make sense to invest time and energy anymore.
Right.
Just go look for another therapy, rather than, you know, going for 5 years and getting nothing.
Right.
That's one thing. And
that's amazing. I'm
on
curious.
The other side.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, I'm curious.
Yeah. On the other side, if you do get results.
Yeah.
Okay, let me finish, because there's a
sure.
mismatch. So on the other hand, if you do get results, then it's again interesting, counterintuitive, I would say. The bigger the problem, the greater the miracle. Like, you would think, okay, the problem is that big, I need 10 years to get it to normal. No, it's the other way around. The bigger the problem, the greater the impact is in just one session. Then, of course, it has to be stabilized. That's true. However, you see the results immediately. So that's, for me, amazing, both for myself and for the parents, if we talk about children.
Fantastic. I mean, I want to just I want to help you guys connect with the world. I found it very hard to find you. So I watched the Superhuman video, and I was like, oh, I've got to speak to these people. You know, it must be easy to find. And I found people that I wasn't sure were connected with you. It seemed a little bit more esoteric than you've been saying. It's, you know, there's these exercises, you do the exercises, and we're working on another sense. And I wasn't sure, and eventually I came to you via Facebook. So I would really love to support you in any way I can. I have this page called Discover Energy Work, and you know, I invite you to send me your information. I'll post it there, and then I'll post any links of YouTube channels and courses you have. I'll post it in the show notes. But is there something, and this is what I did, you know, so I went, okay, I'm going to buy some colored pens, and I'm going to cover my eyes for a period of time where everything's dark, and then I'm going to hold them up and just see, what do I feel? Is that something that people can do at home, just to sort of get a feeling of if there's...
Definitely. Yes. Again, there are 2 things that are needed. One, to believe that this is possible, and second, another program that we were conditioned to have is that we need somebody else to heal us, to cure us, to teach us, to there's always somebody else, not myself.
Right.
It's not true. We can explore ourselves. It's true, it may take longer because you are really, exploring in the unknown. So you have no reference that you can hold on to and, make the next step and so on.
Mm.
And when you have no reference, then uh, you may get to a different path, which is not necessarily the infovision perception. It's all good. Any perception, extra perception is welcome, as long as it gets us out of the little box that we live in.
Yes.
May not necessarily be infovision, and why I'm saying this, without having personal experience about remote viewing, it seems to me there's an overlap in the perception between infovision and remote viewing. Um,
I studied
only
controlled remote viewing. Okay, so I studied a protocol that was used by the Department of Defense in America with one of the trainers in their unit. And I would say with control remote viewing, it's a paper-based protocol, and information comes and you've got no idea where it comes from, but you don't, it's not, it sounds quite different. However, it almost sounds like what you're doing is an even better, faster, more effective method with the information that I've got from you right now. Especially as one of the weaknesses of that military method was reading letters, numbers, was extremely difficult. That is the nice thing about that, is that it's extremely well scientifically researched. So Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff were physicists, yeah, and
exactly.
They did a very good job.
Yeah, well, they had the funds. That's the difference. All the research that we have, we sponsor. Yeah. So that's a big difference when you sponsor yourself.
I totally get it. I mean, the funny thing is they had, it's an irony. They say we only got 15 million, yeah, for that, I don't know, what is it, 15 years that they ran it. How much does a satellite cost to put in space, yeah, to see things? And you're not going to get the information that we got. And if you speak, I mean, my podcast, I've interviewed Lynn Buchanan and Paul Smith. And Paul studied with Ingo Swann, who was the originator, if you like, of the method. And he says, like, the detailed information that they get when they were working on the war of drugs is they would get where the plane was landing, in the middle of nowhere. There is nowhere, there'd been no phone calls about it. Nobody knew. It was literally a psychic event. And they were totally amazed when, the drug enforcement agency appears and sort of says, right, you're coming with us. So, I mean, it is an incredible thing. And I'm very much about, I don't feel like I'm on a crusade. I just want to let people know there are other possibilities and for healing, and also there's other possibilities of the way we can see our world. And certainly, having had children that were seeing auras myself, I don't want to be afraid. I don't want them to. I want to know. Yeah, it's just some people can do that. Some people can make their tongue go into a little tube. I can't do that. But does it make me, bad or evil or whatever? No.
Yeah.
Yes. So
the whole thing behind us accepting these abilities and using them I would say, is our emotional response to information. Because one of the things that naturally develops, I believe, whatever the method you are using, with this ESP, one of the things that naturally develops is that you learn to tell the truth from the non-truth. I don't want to call it lie, but non-truth. And you learn to kind of read people's thoughts, not in a text-wise manner, like, I'm looking at you and I can write down literally every word that you are thinking, not that way, but in a kind of holistic way. I can know generally what you are thinking, or at least if you are thinking positively or negative, or if you are planning something or whatever. So
Right.
you cannot sense the intention. And this was one of my challenges with Infravision, when I got to clearly know when people were lying. And I had to learn, emotionally speaking, to deal with that, because my initial response was an instinctual one, like, how dare you lie to me in my face. It was so clear, so visible. But on the other hand, I did not have the arguments to show to them how I know they were lying. And so, of course, if I would say, oh, you are lying, they would say, oh, it's your imagination, or, how do you argue, or things like that.
Mihaela, I think this is a fascinating topic that you're raising, and it's really what I call like psychic gaslighting, where I don't know if you know the term gaslighting. It's making other people think they're crazy, but actually somebody psychically, they go, oh, I know what that person's thinking, I know their intentions, and then they go, you have no evidence, so you're actually crazy. And I feel it's a challenge. It's a challenge that we have, being, I don't even like the term psychic, but being very connected with our feelings,
Exactly.
and then people can sort of say, no, that's not true. But it is also a fascinating phenomena, because I feel that so often we are, many people are quite dishonest with themselves, and we see this with the narcissistic area, where people are compensating for a lack of real value by puffing up their chest and saying, look, I have value. And of course that comes through as a rather strong tension, and of course they suffer from it in the end.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I needed to learn, to understand that when people are lying to me, there's nothing personal there.
Right.
That was a big lesson to me.
I have a final question that I like to ask everybody, but I would like to say, Mihaela, I mean, it's been fascinating, and I would love to have you come and talk with me again.
Thank you.
What advice, if somebody wants to expand their perception, what advice do you give to everybody? Yeah, I mean, they can come on your classes, but is there something, if they went to somebody else that was offering them that, what would you suggest that they pay attention to, or if they wanted to do it themselves, what would you suggest?
Well, my journey actually started with something totally different, nothing from the ESP area. I started with, some years ago, like I cannot even remember, maybe more than 10 now, with observing and self-observing. That's the thing that increased my awareness. And through this practice, observing your physiological responses when you are, triggered in some way, how your body somatizes that reaction, and that tells you what's going on in your subconscious mind, which is really difficult to access. But the body tells everything. For me, the body is the visible manifestation of the invisible content of the subconscious mind. So everything you want to know about your own subconscious mind, just observe your body. So in me doing so, I identified a lot of personal patterns, supporting but also sabotaging patterns, and at the same time collective patterns. And this practice taught me to not really believe in what my mind has to say.
Okay.
And this helped me open to other things that my mind was, like that.
Right.
I would say, no, I don't believe this. I believe it's like that. And then indeed, that's how it was. And then I thought, oh, but maybe actually it can be like that. And it was like that, and so on.
Right.
So that would be one thing that I would recommend to absolutely everybody. Observation and self-observation. It's a powerful tool to learn awareness and self-awareness. And the activation actually with the mask, that's what it is about. It's about self-awareness, not about or anything else. Yeah. And then just whatever idea comes to your mind. For example, I want to play with, and I will give you the latest example, the latest idea that I got. Again, through self-observation, I noticed that I can feel the radiation of electronics. Not only feel, but it really hurts me if I hold the mobile in my hand for a couple of minutes. It's to hurt.
Right.
So I thought, okay, let's play with this sensitivity. And what I did, I put the phone on the table, eyes closed, dark in the room, everything, and I would hover my hand, trying to feel the radiation, and then put my hand on the table to see, did I get it or I missed it?
Right.
So the idea, let your mind, the child, inner child mind, come up with games, ideas, and just go for it and explore. It's really just about being curious and explore. We all can do anything as long as it's fun, and if you are curious. And very important, this is a mistake that most, if not all, adults do. When we don't get it, we immediately criticize ourselves.
Right.
Oh, it's not working with me. I'm not good. I need 10 years of practice. None of this is true. Just whatever the crazy idea is, play with it alone so that there's nobody, watching you and criticizing you or whatever.
Right.
With respect to seeing without eyes, again, I would encourage total freedom. Anybody can reinvent the method or discover another way of activating for themselves seeing without eyes. Just do it. That's all.
Wonderful. Awesome, Mihaela. Thank you so much. And we will definitely connect people for you.
Thank you. That would be lovely. And waiting for our next unusual talk.